Okay, so imagine this. You're a powerful emperor. You have thousands of soldiers. You have gold. You have land. You have an entire civilization bowing at your feet. You make the laws. You decide who lives and who dies. You are, by every definition, the most powerful person on Earth. But here's the thing nobody tells you. Every decision you make has already been made for you. The wars you start, someone else planned them. The officials you trust, they report to someone else. The taxes your people pay, a big chunk of that money never even reaches you. There is a group, secret, invisible, deeply embedded, that has been pulling the strings of your empire for generations. And the scariest part, you don't even know they exist. This is not fiction. This is not a conspiracy theory. This actually happened. And today, we're going to talk about it.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, we talk about history, but not the boring textbook kind. We talk about the hidden, the forgotten, the stuff that powerful people tried to erase. And today's topic is genuinely one of the most mind-blowing things I've ever researched. We are talking about secret power structures in ancient empires. Specifically, a kind of underground syndicate, a hidden network of individuals that operated in the shadows of one of history's greatest civilizations, and for decades, possibly even centuries, controlled it from within. So buckle up, this is going to be a long one. Get your chai, get comfortable, because once we start, I promise you're not going to want to stop. To understand how a hidden syndicate could control an entire empire, first we need to understand how ancient empires actually worked. See, we have this image in our heads of ancient rulers, pharaohs, emperors, kings, as these all-powerful figures who controlled everything personally. And yes, on paper, they did. But in reality, running an empire is incredibly complicated. Think about it. You're governing millions of people across thousands of miles. You can't be everywhere. You can't personally check every grain shipment, supervise every court case, verify every military report. You need people, thousands of people. Administrators, tax collectors, scribes, generals, spies, merchants. And here's where it gets interesting. Those people, the ones who actually ran the empire day to day, they had information you didn't have. They had relationships you didn't have. They had money flowing through their hands that you could never fully track. Now, what happens when those people start talking to each other? What happens when they realize quietly among themselves, hey, we actually have more power than the emperor does. We just need to organize. That is exactly what happened. In multiple ancient civilizations, from the Roman Empire to the Mauryan Empire in India, from ancient Egypt to the Han Dynasty in China, historians have found evidence of what we can only describe as organized, deliberate, coordinated networks of insiders who controlled the flow of power from behind the scenes. These weren't random corrupt officials. This was systematic. This was a syndicate. Now, when we say underground syndicate, I don't want you to imagine robed figures in candlelit basements with secret handshakes. Although honestly, some of that was probably real too. What I mean is a coordinated group of people, often from different backgrounds, who shared a common goal: maintain and expand their collective power at any cost. So, who were these people? First, the palace eunuchs. In empires like Han Dynasty China and the Byzantine Empire, eunuchs, men who had been castrated usually at a young age, were trusted with access to the inner palace because they were seen as safe. They couldn't father children, so they couldn't start dynasties. They couldn't build family power bases in the traditional sense. But here's what the emperors miscalculated. These men had something far more valuable than bloodlines. They had access, daily, intimate, unrestricted access to the emperor, the empress, the royal children. They controlled who the emperor spoke to. They controlled what documents he saw. They controlled what information reached him. And over time, many of them formed networks. They promoted each other. They protected each other. They accumulated wealth together. In China, at various points in history, eunuch factions became so powerful that they were literally executing generals and ministers who opposed them. Emperors were completely helpless.
Second, the priestly classes. In ancient Egypt and Mesopotamia, temples were not just religious centers, they were banks. They were storage facilities for grain and gold. They had their own police forces, their own legal systems, their own economic networks. The high priests of Amun in Egypt, for example, at the height of their power, they controlled more land and more resources than the pharaoh himself. And they didn't just sit quietly with that power, they used it. They installed pharaohs, they removed pharaohs. When Ramesses XI was on the throne, it was actually the high priest of Amun, Herihor, who was making all the real decisions. Some historians believe he was, for all practical purposes, the real ruler of Egypt. Third, the merchant consortiums. In the Roman Empire and in ancient India, there were organized groups of traders and merchants, guilds basically, that controlled not just commerce but also intelligence networks. They had agents in every major city. They knew which governor was taking bribes, they knew where the army was weak, they knew which official could be bought. And these guilds weren't just passive economic actors, they actively shaped political outcomes. They funded political campaigns, they bribed officials, they provided or withheld grain shipments to starve out enemies. In Rome, the equestrian class, wealthy merchants and financiers, at certain periods wielded more actual influence over policy than the Senate itself.
Okay, so now you might be wondering, how did they keep this secret? How did they coordinate without getting caught? This is where it gets really fascinating. The first tool they used was information control. In ancient empires, information moved slowly, by horse, by ship, by messenger, and whoever controlled those messengers controlled reality. If a general won a battle on the frontier and sent a report back to the capital, that report had to pass through multiple hands before it reached the emperor. At any one of those points, the message could be altered, delayed, or simply lost. The syndicate understood this perfectly. They placed their people at key nodes of the information network, scribes who could change a word here or there, chamberlains who decided what letters the emperor saw today and which ones he'd see tomorrow, translators who could subtly shift the meaning of foreign communications. By controlling information, they controlled the emperor's entire picture of reality. The second tool was financial entanglement. Here's something that doesn't get talked about enough. Many ancient rulers were actually financially dependent on these networks without fully realizing it.
Wars are expensive. Famines need emergency grain. Monuments need construction funds. Where did that money come from? Often from wealthy priestly institutions, from merchant guilds, from powerful landowners. And every loan came with invisible strings attached. You couldn't just execute the people who were funding you. You couldn't dismiss them, you couldn't expose them, because if you did, the whole financial structure would collapse. The syndicate made themselves necessary. That's the genius of it. The third tool was social infiltration. Over generations, members of these networks placed their children, their relatives, their allies into key positions across the empire, not just in the palace, but in the military, in regional governorships, in the judiciary. They married into royal families. They became tutors to princes. So by the time a new emperor came to the throne, he was already surrounded. His closest advisors were part of the network. His wife's family was part of the network. The general he trusted most was part of the network. There was nowhere to turn that wasn't compromised. Let me give you some specific documented examples, because I know some of you are thinking, okay, this sounds a bit dramatic, give me the receipts. Example 1, the Praetorian Guard in Rome. The Praetorian Guard was supposed to protect Roman emperors, but in reality, they became emperor makers and emperor breakers. They assassinated Caligula. They sold the Roman Empire by auction after killing Pertinax. Literally, they stood in their barracks and auctioned off the throne to the highest bidder. A man named Didius Julianus won. The Guard operated as a syndicate with its own financial interests, its own political agenda, and its own code. For long stretches of Roman history, being emperor meant nothing if the Praetorians weren't on your side. Example 2. The Amun priesthood in Egypt.
I mentioned Harryhor earlier, but this goes deeper. For almost 400 years, the entire period called the Third Intermediate Period, Egypt was functionally ruled by the priestly establishment, not the pharaohs. The pharaohs existed, they had titles, they built monuments with their names on them, but actual governance, taxation, military command, foreign policy, all of it ran through the temple network. Archaeologists have found administrative records from this period that show priests issuing commands to military commanders, overriding royal decrees, and controlling trade routes. The pharaoh was essentially a ceremonial figurehead. Example 3. The 9-rank system in Wei Dynasty China. After the Han Dynasty collapsed, China entered a period of chaos. When new dynasties tried to rebuild, they had a problem. They needed educated administrators, and only the old aristocratic families had the education and networks to fill those roles. So these families used a system called the 9-rank system to control who got government appointments. In theory, a central authority assigned ranks. In practice, the great families controlled the rankers, so they controlled the appointments, so they controlled the bureaucracy, so they controlled the empire, while a series of emperors came and went. This lasted for nearly 400 years.
This is the question I always get, and it's a fair one. These were powerful men, emperors, pharaohs with armies at their command. Why didn't they just crush these networks? Some tried, and the results were instructive. Emperor Xuanzong of Tang Dynasty China tried to break the eunuch factions. He arrested their leaders, executed some of them, restructured the palace administration. Within 2 generations, the eunuchs had rebuilt their network and were more powerful than before. Roman Emperor Domitian tried to reduce the influence of the Senate and build his own independent power base. He was assassinated. Akhenaten, the Egyptian pharaoh who tried to dismantle the entire religious establishment by imposing a new religion, was so thoroughly destroyed by the priestly networks after his death that they erased his name from history. For over 1,000 years, he was a forgotten ghost. The problem was structural. You can't execute individuals, but you can't execute a system. As long as the empire needed administrators, priests, merchants, and financiers, the networks that controlled those roles would have power. Remove one face, another takes its place. The only emperors who successfully navigated this were the ones who were willing to be more ruthless, more calculating, and more patient than the syndicate itself. Figures like Augustus Caesar, Ashoka, or the Yongle Emperor. They didn't destroy the power networks, they co-opted them. They became so integral to the network's interests that the network chose to support them instead of undermine them. That's not defeating the syndicate, that's joining it. So what does all of this mean? I think the biggest lesson here is that power is never quite where it appears to be. History books give us names, emperors, pharaohs, kings, and we draw neat lines of authority around them. But real power is messy, distributed, and deeply human. It lives in relationships, in information, in money, in access, in the quiet room before the official meeting where the real decisions are made. These ancient syndicates weren't supernatural. They weren't secret societies with mysterious rituals, although sometimes they had those too. They were people, smart, organized, patient people who understood one simple truth. Whoever controls the environment of power controls power itself. And honestly, if you look around at the world today, at how corporations, lobbying groups, financial institutions, intelligence agencies interact with governments, you'll find patterns that feel remarkably familiar. The names change, the empires change, but the architecture of hidden influence, that's been with us since the very beginning. All right, guys, if you made it this far, I genuinely appreciate you. This took a long time to research, and I think it's one of the most interesting topics we've covered on this channel. If this video blew your mind even a little bit, drop a comment below. Tell me which part hit different for you. Was it the eunuchs, the priests, the whole idea that emperors were just figureheads? Hit that like button if you want to see more deep dives like this, and subscribe, because next week we're going into something even darker. I can't say too much right now, but it involves a conspiracy that may have changed the course of an entire civilization and barely anyone knows about it. I'll see you then.